On an autumn evening in September 1994, humanity suffered its greatest loss, and yet it didn't even know it. What happened was, but before telling you what happened, let me ask you, where is the future that we were promised? Where are the flying cars? Where are the energy efficient houses? Why can't we teleport from here to there as yet? We've been dreaming about these things for decades. We didn't even go back to the moon. And there's no foreseeable sign of going back to the moon. Something that we did in 1969 with machines equivalent to a calculator. And today, we have supercomputers. Today, we have fuel-efficient rockets. And we are doing all that research to create more and more weapons of mass destruction. Missiles. And yet, nobody thinks about going back to the moon. There are plans to go to Mars. But if we can't go back to the moon, how can we go back to Mars? And you know why all that has happened? Because in September of 1994, there was an examination going on in Federal Government Degree College, Quetta. And the paper was almost finished when suddenly the door burst open and a person came rushing in and he whispered something in the ear of the invigilator. The invigilator became tense. And then he quickly collected all the papers from the students and walked out. Later we learned that the Urdu paper that we were doing had been leaked. And therefore, 30 marks would be deducted from every person who attempted that paper, and that included yours truly, roll number 5382, Talha bin Hamid. Fellow Toastmasters and guests, when the results came, of course, I had a red mark against my Urdu paper. And unfortunately, the results were sent directly to the parents. My father, the PhD in organic chemistry, screamed, "You failed Urdu!" And my mother, the MA in Urdu, exclaimed, "Who flunks Urdu?" A moment of complete agreement. The only such moment in their 42 years of marriage. What could I say? How could I explain? Nevertheless, I had to give the paper again.
You are not mentioning these schools. You should have mentioned the name of the school so that we can verify the authenticity of your claim.
And
I just uttered the name,
also
Federal
the
Government
paper.
Degree College, Quetta. Yeah, 94, check the records.
There is no such college in Quetta. What if there is no such college in Quetta?
There is, of course there is. Fire up Google Maps and I'll point you right at it. It's in the cantonment area. Yeah. Nevertheless, I had to give the paper again, and obviously my marks, which would have been pathetic otherwise as well, now I could attribute it all to giving the paper again. But what does it have to do with our failure to go to the moon again?
Why would giving paper again actually give you back?
Because, my friend, when you give a paper again, it's a rule that you don't do as well as you did earlier. At least that applied to me. I don't know about others, but nevertheless. So, when the final results of the FSC examination came, I had a grade B. And that means that I could not get an entry into NED University. And that also meant that the world lost the next Einstein. The world lost the next Benjamin Franklin. The world lost the next Newton. And that That's why you see all this pain and misery today. 50% because what I could not become, and 50% because of what I did become. There was only one institute that was accepting losers like me. Institute of Charted Accountants of Pakistan. I sat in their aptitude test, and without having the faintest clue of what a chartered accountant is, I passed the test with flying colors. And later I learned that being a chartered accountant is something so coveted, it's something so rare, it's something so esoteric that most chartered accountants don't even know what being a chartered accountant means. It takes years and years of study. Excuse me, what is so interesting? Can you share your thoughts with us?
I was trying to strike up a conversation with the lady.
Is this the perfect moment that you found? Am I that boring?
Sometimes.
Who told you to be so honest?
You've known me since 2 years, so you should know my name.
Have you never heard of the sandwich approach?
You know I'm famous for owning the sandwich approach.
Okay, I'll appreciate if you try to develop a little interest.
Okay.
And your companion seems rapt with attention at my words. So please don't spoil it for her.
I'm a very good charterer after all.
So coming back to chartered accountancy, I passed with flying colors. I shifted to Karachi, started the studies. What does a chartered accountant do? Most people think that we get trained for accountancy. Wrong! We get trained for auditing. And to be a good auditor, you need to be a good accountant. You need to be a good cost accountant. You need to be a good management accountant. You need to have a knowledge of statistics. You need to have a knowledge of economics. You need to have a knowledge of corporate law. You need to have a knowledge of taxation. And you need to have a knowledge of basic communication skills. And that's what is reflected by ICAP's current syllabus. It has gotten so complex that I'm sorry, I have to read it out to you. There are 21 total exams. The first stage is called PRC, which consists of 5 papers, which is called prerequisite competencies. And this you do at the very start while attending an institute. The second stage is called CAF, which consists of 8 papers, and that consists of the basic accountancy things like corporate law, mercantile law, basics in accounting, economics. The third stage is called Certified Finance and Accounting Professional, CFAP. That consists of 6 papers. And the final stage, which you give while you're doing articleship in an audit firm, is called Multi-Subject Assessment, which consists of 2 papers. And these 2 papers are actually consisting of various disciplines of the area and not just limited to one subject. While studying and failing, and then gathering yourself up to give those papers again, and trying to win the hearts of your parents, your friends, because you need their prayers, no wonder most students in this field end up like me. While doing all this, you have to do articleship in an audit firm. And fellow Toastmasters and guests, that's what sets chartered accountancy apart from other professions, because the training in the audit firm hones you in certain skills. First of all, the day you join, you start learning impossibly valuable lessons. Ordering tea for your team. What will they take for lunch? Oh my God, the partner is coming! What will you eat, sir? Oh, I just take a light lunch. Order nahari from Banswara. Photocopying, running various errands, transporting files and laptops and equipment from the office to the firm, filling out vouchers on other people's behalf, making a file, or maintaining digital records. The way I talk about files and papers will give you an idea that how ancient I am. Actually, I passed Chartered Accountancy in 2002, and back then, laptops were as rare as space shuttles, at least in Pakistan. But what do you actually learn being a chartered accountant? That is something very, very important, and that is the cornerstone of every profession. Be it lawyers, be it ACCA, be it engineering, or any other profession. What I've learned is that competence or knowledge or intelligence is secondary. Anybody can have them. What really counts is integrity. And we as chartered accountants receive a very rigorous training in ethics, professional ethics, truthfulness, and that's what has enabled us to venture beyond the traditional fields of accountancy and cost accountancy into the realms of consultancy, enterprise risk management, corporate advisory, even manpower restructuring. One can ask, why would a chartered accountant be advising on manpower restructuring? Number one, we have studied to death the idea of labor costs and how they impact an organization. We have done case studies. And number three, we tell it like it is. If something needs to be downsized, or if something requires more employees, we tell it like it is. And that's what people are paying us for. It's not necessarily a world-beating expertise. Obviously, an HR professional would be more proficient than us in all this. But when a firm is attaching their name to a report, it means something. Why does it mean something? Because there's a safety net. If a chartered accountant or a CA firm is found involved in unethical practices, you can always go to ICAP and complain. And they have an investigation department. And their investigation department then conducts an investigation. And if they find out that yes, something was wrong, they've got various penal provisions, which can be a warning, which can be an announcement, or even which can be a removal of license to practice chartered accountancy. What else have I learned passing through this journey? What I've learned is that there's no shortcut to learning. You have to give in the time. There's no magic pill that you'll swallow and suddenly you will develop an expertise in cost accounting. Just like Toastmasters, you can't become an excellent public speaker overnight. You have to come here, and you have to come here again and again and again. And yes, it's a double-edged sword because no matter what your credentials are, you're only as good as your last speech. You're only as good as your last evaluation. It's a continuous learning process. And having achieved something, if anything, places an even bigger stigma on you, rather than making things easy for you. Because the expectations are higher, and you have to work ever higher in order to meet those expectations. For example, my friend here delivered a project from level 3. And obviously, the expectations from the person who will deliver a project from level 3 are far higher than they were when you were doing level 1. And one of those expectations is obviously that a person will remember to bring the printout of the evaluation sheet. But that was somehow forgotten, to the surprise of absolutely no one. But we have ways to cover it, and that's what the resourcefulness of a chartered accountant is. When something isn't working, we find a way to do it. And you know, we could have flying cars today. we could have colonized the moon. And we could have started construction of DHA Phase 11 on Mars. If only some moron didn't cheat that day. So fellow Toastmasters and guests, please don't cheat at anything and stop your children from cheating. Mr. Toastmaster.